At 65, Steve Harvey made a decision that shocked everyone. When he and Marjorie decided to adopt, what happened next created the most beautiful family story and proved that love doesn't follow a timeline, it follows the heart. It was October 2022, and 65-year-old Steve Harvey was at the peak of his career, hosting multiple television shows, enjoying financial success, and looking forward to spending his golden years traveling with his wife Marjorie and spoiling his grandchildren. The last thing on his mind was expanding his family, or becoming a father again, at an age when most men are thinking about retirement. But life has a way of changing course when you least expect it, and for Steve Harvey, that change came in the form of an 8-year-old boy named Marcus Williams, who would turn his world upside down in the most beautiful way possible. Steve was visiting the Hope Children's Home in Atlanta as part of his foundation's annual Christmas toy drive when he first encountered Marcus. The visit was supposed to be routine. Steve would distribute gifts, take photos with the children, and return to his busy schedule. But from the moment he walked into the facility, something felt different about this particular visit. Marcus Williams had been in the foster care system since he was 4 years old, after his mother died in a car accident and no relatives came forward to claim him. He had bounced between 7 different foster homes in 4 years, never staying anywhere long enough to feel like he belonged or had a real family. At 8 years old, Marcus was considered one of the difficult-to-place children because of his age and his emotional walls. Potential adoptive families typically wanted younger children or babies, and Marcus had developed a protective shell that made it hard for him to connect with adults who might leave him, just like everyone else had. When Steve entered the common room at Hope Children's Home, most of the children ran toward him excitedly, recognizing him from television and eager to meet the famous comedian. But Marcus remained in the corner, reading a book by himself, seemingly uninterested in the celebrity visitor. "Who's that young man over there?" Steve asked Mrs. Patricia Jenkins, the facility director. "That's Marcus. He's been with us for 6 months, which is longer than most children stay here. He's had a hard time trusting adults." Something about Marcus's isolation and independence struck Steve immediately. While other children were vying for his attention, Marcus was content to be alone, lost in his book, building the emotional walls that had protected him through years of uncertainty. Steve walked over to Marcus and sat down beside him. "What are you reading, young man?" Marcus looked up, surprised that someone was talking to him. "It's about a boy who becomes a knight," he said quietly. "A knight, huh? That sounds pretty cool. What's your name?" "Marcus." "Well, Marcus, I'm Steve. Mind if I sit here with you for a while?" For the next hour, while other volunteers entertained the rest of the children, Steve sat with Marcus, talking about books, knights, and dreams. What struck Steve most was Marcus's intelligence, his mature way of speaking, and the sadness that seemed to live behind his eyes. "Marcus, what do you want to be when you grow up?" Steve asked. "I want to be a teacher," Marcus said, without hesitation, "so I can help other kids who don't have families." That statement hit Steve like a physical blow. Here was an 8-year-old child who had been abandoned by the system, bounced from home to home, and yet his biggest dream was to help other children in similar situations. When it was time to leave, Steve found himself reluctant to go. He had connected with Marcus in a way that surprised him, and he could see that Marcus had opened up to him more than he typically did with strangers. "Mr. Steve," Marcus said, as Steve was preparing to leave, "will you come back and visit me?" "Of course I will, buddy," Steve promised. "You can count on that." That night, Steve couldn't stop thinking about Marcus. He found himself talking to Marjorie about the boy who wanted to become a teacher to help other kids without families. There was something special about this kid, Marjorie. Steve told his wife. "He's been through so much, but he's still got hope, still got dreams. It broke my heart to leave him there." "What are you thinking, Steve?" Marjorie asked, recognizing the look in her husband's eyes. "I don't know. I just keep thinking about him being alone, bouncing from place to place, never having a real family." Over the next few weeks, Steve found excuses to visit Hope Children's Home regularly. He would bring Marcus books, help him with homework, and spend hours just talking with the boy who had somehow captured his heart. Marcus began to look forward to Steve's visits with an excitement that the facility staff had never seen from him before. For the first time in years, Marcus was bonding with an adult, trusting someone enough to share his thoughts and feelings. "Mr. Steve, why don't I have a family like other kids?" Marcus asked during one of their conversations. Steve felt his heart break a little more. "Marcus, sometimes families come together in different ways than we expect. Sometimes the people who are meant to be your family find you when you least expect it. Do you think someone will want to be my family someday?" "I know they will, buddy. I absolutely know they will." After 2 months of regular visits, Steve made a decision that surprised even him. He was sitting in his office one evening, looking at a drawing that Marcus had made for him, showing the two of them reading together. When he realized what he needed to do, "Marjorie," he said to his wife, "what would you think about us adopting Marcus?" Marjorie looked at her husband with love and understanding. She had been watching Steve fall in love with this little boy over the past few months, and she had fallen in love with him too during her own visits to the children's home. "Steve, are you sure you're ready to be a father again at 65? This would mean diapers, school events, teenage years." "Marjorie, I'm 65 years old, and I've been successful beyond my wildest dreams. I've got money, I've got fame, I've got everything I thought I wanted. But Marcus needs a family, and I need him in a way I didn't know was possible. What about our plans for retirement, for traveling, for being grandparents? We can still do all of that, but we can do it with Marcus as part of our family. That little boy has been waiting his whole life for someone to choose him, to make him a priority, to give him a real home. How can we not do that when we have the love and resources to change his life?" Marjorie smiled and took her husband's hand. "Steve, I've been waiting for you to say that. I fell in love with Marcus too. Let's bring our boy home." The adoption process was more complex than Steve and Marjorie had anticipated. There were background checks, home studies, interviews, and legal procedures that took months to complete. But throughout the entire process, Steve continued his regular visits with Marcus, building the foundation of trust and love that would become the cornerstone of their family relationship. The hardest part was not being able to tell Marcus about their adoption plans until all the legal requirements were met. Steve and Marjorie wanted to be certain that everything would be approved before raising Marcus's hopes about having a permanent family. During the waiting period, Steve discovered more about Marcus's background that made him even more determined to provide the boy with the stable, loving home he deserved. Marcus had been an excellent student. Despite his unstable living situation, he was kind to younger children at the facility, and he had never given up hope that someday he would have a real family. The day that all the adoption paperwork was approved was one of the happiest days of Steve's life. He and Marjorie went to Hope Children's Home with Mrs. Jenkins to tell Marcus the news that would change his life forever. "Marcus, can you come sit with us?" Steve said, his voice shaking with emotion. "We have something very important to tell you." Marcus sat down, looking curious and slightly worried. "Marcus," Steve continued, "you know how we've been talking about families, and how sometimes they come together in unexpected ways?" Marcus nodded. "Well, Marjorie and I have been doing a lot of thinking, and we've made a decision. We want to know if you would like to be our son. We want to adopt you and make you a permanent part of our family." Marcus stared at Steve and Marjorie in complete silence for what felt like forever. Then, slowly, tears began streaming down his face. "You want me to be your real son?" Marcus whispered. "More than anything in the world," Marjorie said, tears in her own eyes. "If you want us to be your real parents." Marcus threw himself into Steve's arms, sobbing with joy and relief. "I've been waiting my whole life for you to ask me that," Marcus cried. Yes, I want to be your son." The legal finalization of Marcus's adoption took place 3 months later in a courtroom filled with Steve and Marjorie's extended family, friends, and staff from Hope Children's Home. When the judge officially declared Marcus to be Marcus Harvey, the new member of the Harvey family, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. "Marcus," the judge said, "do you understand that Steve and Marjorie Harvey are now your legal parents forever?" "Yes, Your Honor. They're my real parents now, and I'm their real son." Steve stood up to address the court, his voice filled with emotion. "Your Honor, people might think it's unusual for a 65-year-old man to adopt an 8-year-old child, but I want everyone to know that Marcus didn't just get a family today. I got the son I didn't know I was missing. This little boy has already made me a better man, and I can't wait to spend the rest of my life being his father." The transformation in both Steve and Marcus after the adoption was remarkable. Marcus, who had been withdrawn and guarded, blossomed into a confident, happy child who thrived in the stability and love of his new family. His grades improved, he made friends more easily, and most importantly, he began to believe that he deserved love and belonging. Steve, meanwhile, discovered that becoming a father again at 65 had given him a new sense of purpose and joy that he hadn't expected. He rearranged his schedule to be present for Marcus's school events, homework help, and bedtime stories. He found himself looking at the world through the eyes of a child again, rediscovering wonder and excitement in simple things. "People ask me if I'm too old to be raising a young child," Steve often says, "but Marcus has made me feel younger than I've felt in years. He's given me energy, purpose, and a different perspective on what really matters in life." Marjorie embraced her role as Marcus's mother with the same love and dedication she had shown to her biological and stepchildren. She helped him with school projects, took him shopping for clothes, and made sure he felt truly integrated into their large, blended family. The most beautiful part of the adoption story was watching Marcus bond not just with Steve and Marjorie, but with his new siblings and extended family. Steve's other children welcomed Marcus as their brother, and the grandchildren gained a new uncle who was closer to their age than their grandfather. 1 year after the adoption, Steve shared Marcus's story publicly for the first time during a special episode of his show dedicated to adoption awareness. "Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to meet someone very special," Steve said, bringing Marcus onto the stage. "This is my son, Marcus Harvey." The audience gave Marcus a standing ovation as he walked confidently onto the stage, no longer the withdrawn child who had sat alone in the corner of the children's home. "Marcus, tell everyone how it feels to have a family," Steve said. "It feels like I finally belong somewhere," Marcus said, with the poise of a child who knew he was loved. "My dad and mom chose me, and they make me feel special every day." "What's the best part about being Steve Harvey's son?" Marcus thought for a moment, then smiled. "The best part is that he's not just Steve Harvey the TV host to me. He's just my dad, and he loves me no matter what." Today, Marcus Harvey is 10 years old and thriving in his loving family. He maintains excellent grades, has joined the school's debate team, and still dreams of becoming a teacher someday. But now, instead of wanting to help children without families, he wants to help children find families, just like he found his. Steve keeps a photo from Marcus's adoption day on his desk, the moment when the judge declared them father and son forever. It reminds him daily that some of life's greatest blessings come when we least expect them, and that love doesn't follow a timeline. It follows the heart. "Marcus taught me that being a father isn't about age or biology," Steve often reflects. "It's about choosing to love a child unconditionally and committing to be there for them no matter what. At 65, I thought I was done being surprised by life. But Marcus proved me wrong in the most beautiful way possible." The Harvey family's adoption story has inspired countless older couples to consider adoption, showing that families can be created at any stage of life when there's love, commitment, and the desire to make a difference in a child's life. If this incredible story of unexpected adoption and the families we create through choice moved you, please subscribe and hit that thumbs up button. Share this video with someone who needs to be reminded that it's never too late to open your heart to a child who needs a family. Have you ever considered adoption or been touched by adoption in your own life? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to ring that notification bell for more amazing stories about love, family, and the beautiful ways we find each other when we need it most.